Every person, no matter who they are, was destined, is destined, will be destined to overcome darkness. There wasn't a person born who did not have the faculties, the measures, the capacity, the capability, the resource, the means to overcome darkness in their life. Every person born is set up to manifest a particular version of the same story, which is the light overcoming the darknesses. Singular versus plural is how I said it. The natal birth chart includes instructions for our life. It is a blueprint of our soul's journey and how it is expected to unfold. The various ways and degrees that are possible for it to express the same vibrations or numbers that we were destined to exemplify, to give to the world. All theologies and all sciences, even arts, teachings, religions, they all come together to bear witness to the perfect wisdom in the natal birth chart. The natal birth chart is not just a thing of entertainment, pastime, and poetry. It is indeed sacred. It is a sacred reference that has personal instructions for you, for me. A point of reference for us to always be guaranteed to find meaning. No matter what we are facing, passing through, subject to, we can find the meaning. There's not a person born who does not have a natal birth chart, whether you're aware of it or not. Every person has every sign expressed to them. Aries is expressed through you. Taurus is expressed through you. Gemini is expressed through you. Cancer is expressed through you. Leo is expressed through you. Virgo is expressed through you. Libra is expressed through you. Scorpio is expressed through you. Sagittarius is expressed through you. Capricorn is expressed through you. Aquarius is expressed through you. Pisces is expressed through you. Every one of us. We all have an imprint upon us of the heavens. We are a crystallized manifestation of what the heavens were expressing at the time when we were born. And that becomes the story of our life. It becomes what is source of the meaning that unfolds in our life. Every natal chart is as unique as a fingerprint. No two fingerprints are exactly the same. But the essence of what we're all here for is indeed the same. We are passing through earth. We are passing through a physical existence, a temporary trial, a marketplace. And we're here to make a proof for ourselves or against ourselves. We're here to make a proof. From the cradle to the grave, we are tried in various ways. We are tried with what we are given. We are tried with what we lose. We are tried with what we are entrusted with. Even our children, they do not belong to us, but we are entrusted with them. They are entrusted to us, to our care. We come here forgetting that we own nothing. There is nothing that we can own. What you own is what you are born with and what you die with. That is what you own. That is simply of the essence, spirit expressed. It's been a very long journey that I have been studying and learning about astrology. And just as I'm speaking about the natal birth chart, it wasn't to my awareness that other experiences and themes were preparing me for a unique understanding in astrology. I went the long route. At 14 years old, I first got an introduction to astrology, as I had an older brother who was doing a bid, and his property was being moved as he was being transferred, and among that was an astrology book, and the title was The Only Astrology Book That You Will Ever Need. I'm not exactly sure who the author is. I should know, and I will find out, and I will put in the comment section. But that is the only astrology book that I ever read. I did not study astrology from authors of astrology. I learned and understood astrology through other religions, other sciences, other practices. And by means of what I could not fathom or explain, the understanding came. Islam gave me understanding of astrology. Ifa, Yoruba, African spiritual tradition helped me to understand astrology. Voodoo helped me to understand astrology. Christianity helped me to understand astrology. Numerology helped me to understand astrology. Tarot helped me to understand astrology. Martial arts helped me to understand astrology. Boxing helped me to understand astrology. Biochemistry helped me to understand astrology. Physics helped me to understand astrology. Politics helped me to understand astrology. The streets helped me to understand astrology. Psychology helped me to understand astrology. Anatomy helped me to understand astrology. There is nothing. Car mechanics helped me to understand astrology. Everything that I learned revealed the meaning of astrology to me. It was not books. The wisdom of that became an understanding in the years when I was homeless in New York. I was desperate to understand the meaning of what I was going through in my crisis. It was a scary time. Although there were a lot of moments of revelation that really overwhelmed me with joy and security, there were times where it was very scary. And I was desperate to understand the meaning of what I was passing through. And astrology is all I had to look to, along with tarot. I would pull my own cards and I would study my chart. I was desperate to understand. Just give me a little piece of understanding and I can make it. Just help me to know for sure what this means or what that means, and I know I can make it one more day. I don't need to see a day ahead. Just let me see 5 minutes ahead. Just let me see 20 minutes ahead. Let me make it to the evening. Let me still be alive in the morning. Being so desperate, something happened that, again, I do not have the ability to explain. There are just things that God does that I do not have the wisdom to explain. I cannot articulate. My clairvoyance began to open up to me in a greater way than what I've ever experienced in my life. I know I've always been clairvoyant, but I had an access to visions through astrology like I've never had before in that time. And that's when I began receiving lessons of what astrology means, where all of it was tied in together. I would be in between the state of sleep and a state of consciousness in the most simple circumstances. Rather, I would be, at the pier in Brooklyn, on the dock in Staten Island. I would like to, sit somewhere and look at water. Or in Manhattan, looking at the skyline. At times I would work, at the 59th Street Bridge, Queensbridge. It's a beautiful view, And between the water and the New York City skyline, there was always some inspiration I could grab. And those moments where it seemed like I had a sacred space is when I would begin to receive counseling from sources that I cannot explain. And they would teach me what everything means. They would use my memory, use my understanding of other religions, sciences, arts, teachings, whatever it was that I passed through in my ninth house, in my days of study, my days of knowledge. And they would put it in order in a way that I could understand meaning in the astrology. But it wasn't words, signs, symbols, feeling. And I would feel an overwhelming certainty that would dominate the fear, a faith that would dominate the doubt, a clarity that would dispel clouds in an instant. And that's when I knew I was not to rely on my own understanding, but I was to open my heart up to receive the understanding through the relationship that I would remain committed to between me and God. That's when the natal birth chart, it began to mean something different to me. That we all have a sacred text, a sacred book that was written just for us. Just for us. A guide. But if you come to understand it, while seeking salvation for yourself, while cleaning up your life, while abstaining from what would contaminate your soul, abstaining from what would contaminate your heart, avoiding what would subject you to guilt, fault, or error in your ways, sins, bad character. If we can just work on that and put the relationship of God above all things, to value your relationship with God above all things, to use every opportunity that you can to prove to yourself, to witness to yourself that I love God more than this. I love God more than that. I love God more than that person. I love God more than this situation. I love God more than that opportunity. And use every situation that you have to prove that to yourself. Moving through layers of temptation. Sooner or later, you will find a freedom that nothing and no one can take from you. In freedom, you get access to love. Only in freedom do you get access to love. That's when you get a glimpse of what love is and what love means, what it really feels like. And it has nothing to do with another person. It has nothing to do with what you expect of another person, of what somebody else can afford you. It has everything to do with the value and the quality of the relationship between you and Allah. Nothing else. When you have that love, Allah becomes protective of you. And when you are protected by God, your footsteps are ordered. Access to you is managed. The circumstances and situations, the crossroads that you approach, they are all measured in time. This is when we see it appropriate to stay in a spirit of humility. Because in the spirit of humility, we realize, hold on, I think I'm a student here. I am not the leader. I am not the teacher. I'm not the one who knows the answers or the way to go. So we step into the divine feminine, where we are a receiver, a receptor of what is at hand. And in that divine feminine, God raises you to the high priestess, where it all comes to you what you need. It comes to you what you need to understand. It comes to you who you need to align with it, and what you need to know or change or manage about yourself. I'm describing that because it is not until we get into this relationship with God that the natal birth chart, it really comes alive. And God speaks to you through your chart. It's not your intelligence that you are to rely on, because your intelligence, it can trick you. It can fool you. That's why Eshu, the Lord of the Crossroads, is the trickster in one of his personifications. Besides Eshu Dara and many other attributes. But Eshu, the Lord of the Crossroads, through Mercury, he is the trickster. And you could be the fool who's foolish enough to think that you're not the fool. Leaning into your divine masculine without the balance of your divine feminine, thinking that your logic is going to pull you through. It will not. It will only get you but so far. When it comes to the divine, you are student. You are receiver. And we have to meet the divine and the divine feminine as a receiver, a maiden, a helpmeet of the destiny that they are working through in your life. The bride. The natal birth chart needs to become personal. Not just a piece of art. Not just sweet sayings and poetry. We're turning corners in our evolution collectively, where we're going to need the autonomy again. The 29th degree Pluto is separating us from reliance on constitution that is outside of ourselves. But this doesn't mean for us to be savage, without rules, without laws, without discipline, without a requirement of obedience from ourselves, without the need for order. Divine masculine to contain the divine feminine. This is a misunderstanding that especially females have sent out into the world with their articulation and teaching of spirituality. It turned into a tragedy. Unfortunately, most females out there do not know how to teach spirituality because they don't have the strength to do so correctly. You cannot separate spirituality from Saturn, from discipline, order, structure, from accountability, from responsibility, from due diligence and duty, from character. And you most certainly cannot separate it from God. That is called magic. That is called sorcery. That is called witchcraft. And this is not something I think, this is not something I have an opinion of, but as a Babalawo of Ifa, I understand what it is that I'm saying. And understanding is higher than knowledge and wisdom. The natal birth chart allows us to get ourselves out of the way, to look at the facts. Our natal chart deals with math, measures, practices of carpentry, in which there are angles to observe and the meanings of those angles. It includes the understanding of power and authority in turn. Introspect, exoteric and esoteric insights, so that we're looking what's in something and what's around something. It has all of the details that we are to contemplate and consider to arrive at a proper understanding with ourselves. Insight into ourselves. It is a means by which we find the meaning for our soul, and no matter what it is that we are facing, it dissolves all form, all interferences that get in the way of you getting back to the source of from whence this energy is coming. And there is no religion, spiritual practice, or discipline that astrology cannot transcend, that astrology cannot be compatible with. And through astrology, we come to understand that all truth is one, just as all love is one, expressed in various ways. The natal birth chart is an authority in our life. It is a criterion of judgment. When there is inner conflict, turmoil, where I can't get a read on what my head is saying and what my heart is saying, I can't come to an agreement between my head and my heart. Well, the natal birth chart has insight for the logical and the spiritual value that is interplaying at the same time. Matters of the mind and matters of the heart at the same time. Cognitive, intuitive, and subconscious at the same time. What's coming from them and what's coming from me at the same time. It is a means that we can investigate without our personal opinion getting in the way, our ego getting in the way, our preferences of what we want the truth to be, our preferences of what we want justice to mean, our preferences of where we want to be in life, rather than acknowledging presently where we are in life and what attention is required. What is demanded of us in the present. We can look ahead if we need to prepare ourselves to pass through certain energies that are fated or destined for us. Making preparation, being responsible. Studying and investigating so that we can detach and not personalize what must pass through. Through study of the natal chart, we see that we all start out life in shadow, in the folly of our youth, the vulnerability of our ignorance. And we see that there's a turning point at different times of our life where we have access to a new understanding, a new realization. Different faculties open up and different faculties close according to what we need access to. All of this means absolutely nothing if we cannot apply it all to our relationship with ourself and our inner child, ourself and others who we exchange value with, our relationship with our own subconscious, and how it is affecting us, driving us. It means nothing if we cannot apply it to the benefit and better outcome, the purification, the good fortune of our relationships in life. If we cannot use it to help us to understand what our relationships mean or should mean. If we cannot use it to look back into the past and elevate the meaning that we have placed on those symbols. We can't change the past. But as our understanding increases, as our experiences increase, as our wisdom increases, we're able to look back at those symbols of the past and change the meaning or extract more meaning out of it. And that in and of itself does change the past. We all come here with a Chiron placement, an aching pain, discomfort, insecurity. And seeing that it's at a particular place, making a particular expression, immediately we're able to understand, it wasn't personal. It was meant to be. Somebody had to deliver this pain. Somebody or something had to be a catalyst for the insecurity that I walk with every day. And this starts our first expressions of forgiveness. As we practice forgiveness, sooner or later we begin to learn there really is nothing to forgive. Because there really is no offense. Whoever wronged me and whoever offended me, if it wasn't my own perception, if it wasn't my own expectation, if it wasn't my own interpretation, then the same one who inflicted the hurt was suffering. And their suffering could have been greater than the pain that I received from their infliction. When we really begin to take our time to do the work of studying ourselves, we understand others with greater ease. And we can afford so much more forgiveness. Our understanding expands and we become compassionate. Our tolerance expands and we become united. Embracing. Our logic harmonizes with the heart space, like a husband that harmonized with his wife. Our logic embraces our intuition. Like a husband who loves his wife. And that bond becomes powerful. Where the heart and the mind makes unity. It makes bond and not conflict. Now we walk with understanding. Now we see with 3 eyes instead of 2. Depth perception is greater. I want us to never underestimate our natal birth chart, and I want us to elevate it much higher than what we have. This is our first holy scripture. And no matter what scripture that you study, refer to, it is indeed compatible. You will find it compatible. You will never find astrology in disagreement or conflict to any spiritual meaning that you will ever discover for yourself of religions or spiritual sciences, theologies, schools of thought. They all will be witnessed by astrology. Numerology works hand in hand with the natal chart. Tarot works hand in hand with the natal chart. But we are simply artists and poets if we do not include discipline, accountability, Saturn, and the divine authority of God. We are short of what it has to offer. We have to be more than poets and artists with spiritual resources and powers, because this is indeed a spiritual resource and power. You can consult your natal birth chart for medical issues, psychological issues, past life, predictability, troubleshooting the conflicts in your family, the generations, the curses. A baby is born today. Produce his natal birth chart. Produce her natal birth chart. You will have an understanding of their entire lifetime and timeline. What they will face, what they have at their disposal to overcome it, what the story of their life is. The South Node will inform you on the wisdom that this child is coming with. The North Node will inform you to the vulnerabilities and growth opportunities that this child is scheduled through fate to transform through. The lunar placement will clarify how you as the mother will affect this child and the intuition. The sun placement will clarify how you as the father will affect this child and their destiny and their self-confidence, their creativity, their ideal of themselves. You go into the 4th house, you understand how the home environment will be perceived or received from this child. You go into the 10th house, you see the character that they must rise to be successful in life, to be prosperous. And you see the success and prosperity is not limited to commercial ideals. of monetary gains, but it is to the fulfillment of your soul's mission and the value that you are to bring to the world. Through the ascendant, the first house, you get to see what medical vulnerabilities or strengths that this child has. The physical limitations and capacity. The second house, you can understand their self-esteem, their ethos. Venus, what type of females they will be attracted to. Mars, what type of guys they will be attracted to. Mars, how they want to feel from that woman. Venus, how they want to feel from that man. I've heard it said many times from you out there, as well as myself over decades, that if our school systems, public schools, could have classes of astrology, how much mental illness, lack of self-esteem, self-hatred, bogging children down with studies that are unnecessary to their destiny, limitation and constriction of the personality, intolerance to other cultures and religions, walks of life. Troubles and issues at home that the child is suffering from emotionally. There are so many things that could be prevented in society by introducing astrology to children at an early age, to the parents at an early age. Unfortunately, there are so many people out there who are teaching astrology and making simple art and poetry of it. This is sacred. It's not just art and poetry. And with so many running around saying what they don't know what they're talking about, people out there have a bad taste in their mouth about astrology. And number two, when a guy is speaking about astrology, his credibility is already denied until they hear more. Because feminism took over astrology. Feminism took over tarot. Feminism took over all of these spiritual practices. Males were alienated. They are intoxicated out there with ideals of misogyny and patriarchy in all of this speech and these practices. I know because I was a seeker at one point and I could not find who I needed to learn and understand astrology. Instead, you're walking away feeling some way about yourself because you were born a man. And second, because you're a heterosexual man. It's like because you're straight, you're a sinner. Because you're not rainbow, you're in violation to the truth of what spirituality is here to unfold. Females teaching spirituality can lead to a lot of confusion if they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And that is what I ran into in early years, which is behind why I had to become who I was looking for. I am masculine. I'm a man. I don't like men. I like girls. And it's not a sin. It's not a fault. Because I'm masculine. Because I like to beat my chest. I like to fix cars and walk around with grease on my forearms. I like to drink out of the carton. and fart on the way to the refrigerator. I scratch my nuts and I laugh really loud in the house. I get scabs, cuts, and scrapes, and I don't cry about it. Somebody might have to tell me, oh, you should get that looked at. Oh, it'll be all right. I'm one of those. I'm proud of my testosterone. I'm gritty. Sagittarius South Node, and you can hear it. Sagittarius uncivilized, is barbaric, it's ignorant. And I am uncivilized, barbaric, and ignorant in my emotionality. North Node at Gemini, it means that I have to learn how to clean that up. I have to tidy it up. I have to be a little more civilized in my presentation. I have to be a little more neat in my delivery. I have to be a little less barbaric. See, my natal chart tells me who I am. And it also helps me to understand what I don't have to fucking apologize about. But if you learn spirituality from females, you would think that it's a sin for you to be a masculine man. Feminism took over every fucking thing in the world at this point, including spirituality. I became who I was looking for. Give it to me raw. Tell me the truth. No chaser. What does this mean? And that's why I talk the way I talk. That's why I teach the way that I teach. Because I wasn't looking for the watered down. Talk to me like we standing outside the bodega kicking it. Explain everything to me without the poetry, without the fancy sayings and the extra words, without making art out of what my chart means. Just say the shit, man. What the fuck does this mean? What is this? What is that? Okay, why I'm going through this, why I'm going through that. Okay, on a world scale, what is happening? Okay, in my personal life, how about that? I became who I was looking for. And that's what you got to do too. You got to become exactly who you're looking for. Because guess what? You're the hero that shows up in your life. You are. Not somebody else with a cape. There is abundant blessings and opportunity in having a means of understanding another person. When we can arrive at an understanding of another person, the tolerance, the forgiveness, the compassion, the empathy, it accelerates, it expands. It deepens. And it comes with its own sense of detachment. Because the attachment in and of itself in relationships, it establishes itself on the expectations that we have on a person's identity. Attaching to ideas of who we expect them to be or who we prefer them to be. And whenever a contradiction manifests, we're offended. We're upset. We do not accommodate for what it could mean. Through study of the natal birth chart, we can harness more responsibility, clarity, competence, consideration, and understanding towards others. We can arrive at the ability to meet others where they are, to speak the language that they need us to speak in. The natal chart has all of the details that we need to study the person without our personal opinions, bringing perversion into what we think of them, without our past traumas and disappointments, casting perceptions over them. Look at the chart, and we understand where they're coming from. We understand why they have the behaviors and the attitude that they do. And we can begin to accept that it has nothing to do with you. It's not personal to you. You're not as special as you thought you were, to where somebody has to be so personal to you in what they do and say. There's a reason the person is unhappy, frustrated, closed off, not responding well to you. There's a reason. And everything is not because something is wrong with them. They're a bad person. Oh, they're selfish. No. If you study the chart, you will understand they are just as human as you do. And their needs are in different ways, in different energies, different frequencies, different values, modalities, and elements. You will fire looking at water and upset that it doesn't bring the warmth radiating outward that you do. Upset that it brings properties that gets things wet. And you have properties that sets things on fire. You're upset that water is behaving like water and fire is behaving like fire. But when you can understand that water is simply being water, you can accept that it's water. You can accept that it's fire and not attempt to change it into an element that it is not. Being offended that it is being what it is destined to be. You got a Taurus rising and you're expecting them to be so flexible just because you're an air rising, Gemini rising. You got a Scorpio rising and you're expecting them to be so trusting as you are, and you're a Libra rising. No, you're coming from totally different algorithms of consciousness, and it's for you to understand where they are at so you can meet them where they are at and allow them to be who they are and you be who you are. And in respecting that, you can learn something just as they can. We don't even want to look at the chart of the other person because we want to remain stubbornly attached to what we think should be the way that they operate, to what we prefer them to do and say. No, I don't need to look at a chart. She just wicked. He's just wicked. Oh, something wrong with him. Something wrong with her. No, I don't need to look at a chart. Something, there ain't nothing gonna fix it. Nothing needs to be fixed because nothing is broken. We don't want to hear that. Our children come in different modalities. You can't raise a fire sign the same way that you raise a water sign. You can't discipline earth the same way that you discipline air. You can't communicate to water the same way that you communicate to fire. And from house to house, they hold different elements. The personality may be air, but their idea of a value system might be water. Your values might be earth and you're very rigid. Their values might be water, and it has everything to do with what they feel, what they're interpreting in the feeling, the emotionality of matters. We don't want to meet people where they're at. And the same with our children. So we end up breaking them. We break them because we mishandle them. In our relationships, we don't want to study it because we want what we think to be true. We want it to be true. We don't want it to be incorrect. We don't want it to be a misunderstanding. We want all the misunderstanding to be their fault, not mine. These natal birth charts are solutions for so many of our problems. What is the other person going through? Why are they behaving that way? You look into the 12th house and you see that Mars is passing through the 12th house. You see that Vesta is moving through the 12th house. You see that Saturn is moving through the 12th house. You see that Chiron is moving through the 12th house. Oh, okay. Wow, they are really dealing with a lot right now. They are struggling to find clarity in isolation. And here I am demanding that they open up. Oh, why does this person seem like they don't, all of a sudden you was fine with being with me last week. You was fine with being with me last year. Everything was good. Oh, it must be some bitch that you fucking on. But you study the chart and you see Saturn is passing through the 7th house. And guess who Saturn is? You and your big ass mouth. You are the Saturn. And they feel restricted. They feel confined. They feel imprisoned by your big mouth ass. And they're trying to redeem a sense of freedom for themselves and they're struggling to figure it out. But instead of you helping them with that, you're making it worse. Oh, I don't know what's going on. This ain't gonna work. They ain't got their half of this bill. They don't have their half of that bill. They slacking up. But you look in the chart and you see that there's an affliction to the 2nd house. Black Moon Lilith is in the 2nd house. So they're gonna have a hard time coming up with it for 9 months. Saturn is going through the 2nd house. They're going to have a hard time coming up with it for the next 2.5 years. They're learning some things. But you're ready to call it quits. Divorce court. Because a transit is coming through and you didn't bother to study the fact that a transit was passing through. You took it personal. Oh, you act just like your daddy. Something wrong with you. You act just like, yeah, he does. That's why you should have thought about it before you start fucking this nigga. Because that's what happens. When you have babies, they come out just like the parent. Yeah. Are you confused? Now, how do you subject these qualities and attributes to some illumination? To see the better side of these energies. Just like you should have done with the one who you had the baby with. These things are mysterious until we study. A dilemma that I had was all my life, I've been through so many religious institutions, theologies, schools of thought, disciplines, practices, and learned from so many teachers. And not just people who flip books in the bedroom and want to share something, but qualified scholars, like real teachers. And it's been my lifelong obsession, seeking the truth, so-called. And my father's character was key to me having an acceptance of what character it required to not stand in contradiction to what I was learning. My father had a beautiful character. He had a strong character. He set a great example. And though when I was maybe 10 or 12, somewhere around there, there was, my mother and my father divorced, I still, would be at his house every weekend, cross the bridge. And the examples continue. I never once felt unloved. I never once felt like I wasn't cherished by my father. I never once felt like he was missing in action, even though there ended up being long periods of time between me seeing him or spending time with him, even years. But I never once felt like he didn't love me, like he didn't think about me, whichever else. And I know that I'm very fortunate to have had that experience because a lot of people didn't. And I don't take that for granted, and that's part of why I owe back what I got from that. And that's why I'm doing what I do now. I owe this back. I don't take that for granted. And with my father dying when I was maybe 21 or 22, that crystallized a particular memory of him that I still have. The man who never littered, who I never heard say a curse word. And see, that's part two why I got to clean up my delivery. I need to, take his example and rise to it. I'm still challenged today to rise to his example. He didn't curse. Not in my lifetime, he did. Before I came into the picture, he was a drug dealer and a pimp. My mother, when she met him, he was coming out of that world. He was pimping and drug dealing. And he became a politician. No say, what's the difference, right? He became a politician. He was also a chemist, a chemistry teacher, college professor, librarian, horticulturer, political activist. I helped him to clean up the slums in New York. I was with my father when he was cleaning up the slums in New York. He was a Pan-Africanist. I mean, Black Power for real. Marcus Garveyite. Understand that. That's where I got my first understanding of what Black Power really means. What it really means to be pro-Black and Pan-African. I got that from my father. So later on, I would get the details of that from the Nation of Islam as they took me under their wing. 5% Nation, in the streets of New York. Gods and earths. Understand that. And my mother, however, was key to... Now, before I say that, my father represents the sun in the natal birth chart, and I have the sun in Mars conjunct at the 11th house. I'm a snapshot of my father, except for I have more aggression, coming from the South Node, Sagittarius. He was for the people. He was for the world. He was a politician. That's 11th house all day. Mars conjunct the sun, 11th house, that's like a police officer, public servant, public defender, politician, whatever, follow the leader, all that other stuff. But anyway, with my mother at the south end, Sagittarius, she represents the moon conjunct Neptune, okay? I have the moon conjunct Neptune. It's a full moon conjunct Neptune, just like we got coming up. We have the moon conjunct Neptune coming up in the eclipse. And I was born on full moon conjunct Neptune. This is part of the clairvoyance that I have. This is why I'm able to see things, hear things that, I still can't explain. When I'm doing readings for people, I'm not just going off of the logic. I'm not just going off of the divine masculine. I'm tapping into my divine feminine under the guidance of my divine masculine. That's how I give readings. And anybody out here who's gotten a reading from me, you will understand that if you interfere with me, I will stop you from interfering with my reading, and I will, make it clear to you, hey, listen, I don't want you to say certain things or do certain things that will interfere with my downloads, because I'm not just going off of my logic. I'm trusting my connection to source to give you this reading so that it not just hits from myself, from my own reasoning, my own logic, my own understanding. That can't help you. I can't help you with my logic. That's perversion, because now I'm contaminating something that's supposed to be sacred and divine, which is why I have to live the right lifestyle to be who I am. If I'm not living the right lifestyle and somebody, hey, I need a reading, and I do the reading for you, and I'm living corrupt, I'm living dirty, I'm contaminating your reading because of my lifestyle, because of what I've been doing before I got to this moment. So me giving a reading to somebody is not so simple as, oh, let me look at your chart, and then I just start explaining to you what your chart means. No. That's irresponsible, and it does not fulfill the trust. If you know that you're expected by the public to be giving readings and giving advice, I get phone calls all day, every day. People go through things. Marriages, relationship issues, matters going on with people's children, all of that. I get calls all day on these things. All day. For years, for decades, this has been the case. For decades. And I can't put myself in a way in things that are sacred like this. You can't include your ego, your opinion, your knowledge. You don't do that. Because now your ego is interfering and contaminating something that's supposed to be sacred, just as I said. So we have to have a connection to source as light workers. You're supposed to have a connection to source that's sacred. But you can't pull that off without salvation. And anybody out here who think that you getting ready to have that without salvation, you a motherfucking lie from the pit of a motherfucking hell, nigga. You a goddamn lie. You ain't pulling that off without connection to source. And you don't have connection to source without salvation. And you don't have salvation without healing all of your relationships in your life. So that person who you got a grudge against, who you can't forgive, who, you still hate and all this other stuff, guess what? You don't have salvation until you rectify that, until you clean that up. And until you do that, you have no business giving people readings. You have no business pulling cards. You have no business giving people advice. None of that. Because you got to clean yourself up first before you cross-contaminate somebody else with your filthy ass shit. You got to clean that motherfucker up. You can't have dirty ass needles sitting on a tray talking about, oh, let me take a blood sample. You got this patient's blood smeared all over the tray, but you got this person coming in the room talking about, oh, let me give you an operation. But you still got the same dirty gloves on. That's what you're doing. So your lifestyle has to prepare you for the moment when somebody says, hey, I would like a reading. This is not a game. And I watch how females, especially out here, have taken this as a game, an opportunity to get attention that they otherwise could not get. Validation, ego trips. They're so anxious to say I'm a witch, so anxious to say I'm a priestess, so anxious to say I'm a light worker, just anxious to get attention and validation from accolades and titles. Picture all over the YouTube, picture all over Instagram, picture, like, goddamn, this shit all about you, ain't it? Titties and ass. Females especially need to really check themselves in this spiritual space. Coming from the knowledge, coming from the logic, and not flowing from source is dangerous. You could really mislead someone. You can misguide someone. You could corrupt someone, especially inserting yourself. So what type of lifestyle do you have behind that? How are you living? How are you living? How are you moving? What's in your day to day, your routine? And if you got sin and filth going on, you are cross-contaminating people. And it don't mean you got to be perfect. No, it don't. But it means that you got to take yourself serious enough to value the content of your water placements, your emotionality. It should be clear and flowing. And it can only be clear and flowing because of your lifestyle and the healing that you exercise and do. The relationships that you heal and keep from oppression and injustice to yourself and others. Doing the work. When you give somebody a reading, you are pulling from clean waters to pull that off. It's supposed to be clean waters. Your emotionality. So when your emotions are all junky and full of negativity and drama and darkness and stuff that you subjecting yourself to, living promiscuous, sleeping with this person and that person, and you got all these spirits on you, unresolved issues and drama. No, you have no business reading for somebody. You need to read for your damn self and fix yourself. Heal yourself. Worry about your damn own soul before you out here trying to be a hero. That's not how it works. We need more respect taken to these spiritual spaces. The sacredness has to come back to it because females reduced it, especially African American females have reduced it to lust and attention. I watched it. It's mainly the African American females out there just reduced it to lust and attention. And now a lot of them went a different way after it was no longer popular. They put the wigs back on their head. They put the lashes back on, the long ass nails. And they threw that in the back seat and went on with the next trend. Jumping from one trend to the next. This is not a fucking trend. It's sacred. And it irks me, it angers me, it pisses me off when people disrespect this space. I don't like when people disrespect this space because it's sacred. People are going through things. People are suffering. People need to tap in and connect and have clarity, understanding about their life, about the soul's journey. You can't be playing with people's lives. It is not a game. You cannot be playing with people's lives. You're being trusted. You're being trusted. Natal birth chart. Natal birth chart. Now, if we had these in the, as I was saying, just imagine we had, in elementary, kindergarten, elementary school, high school, right? You had different stages or phases of, the youth learning the natal birth chart, or even if this doesn't get introduced into these school systems, this can help in the prisons. I used to be a prison chaplain. You know what I mean? I used to go for 3 years. I went to different prisons and jails to teach Islam, and I'm here to tell you that it was a joyful experience. And in the prisons, I never met men who were more disciplined and sharp, from an Islamic perspective, that is. The Muslim brothers up in there are very sharp and dedicated. I don't know about this generation because that was in my 20s. But I do know that it's a place where people are looking for hope, looking for clarification, and looking for meaning into their life. And matter of fact, I might be prophesying right now, Who knows? But these scenes can be used in prisons. You know what I'm saying? Where you got the youth in there who, waiting for their court date, just got in or going through things or whatever. And the natal chart can help to revive, to awaken meaning in their life. And not meaning that's made up, but meaning that is of the origin of their own essence. A revelation of meaning in their life. And that could be a turning point, for people. Because a lot of times when you see somebody out in the world wilding, doing things that's self-destructive, crazy and harmful or oppressive, that person is suffering inside somewhere. Because really, it's not too many people who you could say is a bad person just because they're doing bad things. A person doing bad things doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bad person. A lot of times they're suffering, and that's why they're doing it. And that suffering can come from something as simple as, I feel insecure, I feel powerless, or I feel in conflict internally. Now, where did I get that from? I got that from understanding natal charts. You see how easy it is to assess a situation once you understand the charts? And what has me to intuitively go there, to seek out, an answer like that, right? If a person is producing foul behaviors, you automatically have to go to the points of salvation. 4th house, 8th house, 12th house, or Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. And the rulers of these energies as well. So when you go to these placements, you see the source of confusion, of doubt, of fear, of hatred, and any of the 7 sins that you can name, self-destruction. It all comes from the water. It's all going to come from the water. And you simply name the water. Cancer, insecurity. Scorpio, feeling powerless. Pisces, internal conflict. You see how easy that is? So the natal birth chart, it gives us a guide in how to evaluate and assess. How to heal effectively, truthfully, according to the way that the human being is designed in this reality. That doesn't miss. It's accurate every time. It does not miss. So if these things can be explained in our institutions, this could really change things. It really could. It could change lives. It could give hope. I was a troubled teen. By the time I was 14, I was kicked out of every school in the county. And it got to a point where I was fighting so much that no school wanted to take me. Right hand to Allah. Wallah, y'all, I swear to Allah. My mother cried and she looked at me in disappointment. I remember the words she used. She said, "Your impulsiveness is making life very difficult." And she kept using that word impulsiveness because I was impulsive. I didn't understand my energies. But imagine back then if I could understand my energies. If I could understand the impulses that I have, if I could understand the forces that I have and why they are there, what they are trying to accomplish, and how I can accommodate them to accomplish without destruction in a constructive manner. All these things would have made a difference. All of it. But, I was kicked out of all the schools. I ended up in a alternative school, with pregnant girls and drug dealers. You know what I'm saying? And I would be in that school for like 2 years, with pregnant girls and drug dealers and the rejects. And it was a Nation of Islam that came along and helped me to redeem myself. They embraced me fully. They surrounded me. It wasn't just one of them. It was many brothers, that was consistently there for me. They would come to the door, show up at the door, They got permission from my mother and they started, mentoring me, showing up at the school. They would question me about my grades. Every time I was out and about, around the city or whatever, I would seem to run into them. And, I started to feel a sense of accountability and expectation over me. And it was coming from brothers who had exemplary, whatever let me see the right word, exemplary character. They had great character. They had excellent character. And they were very disciplined. They were very tough. I always felt intimidated by them. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing for a young man. I felt intimidated by them. That intimidation is very healthy. I never felt comfortable with them. And what I mean is, I never felt comfortable in the sense where we in the same peer group. Or I could just come out my head and say any stupid shit or do anything stupid and not be pressed by it or have to be accountable for it. That was very healthy. I was surrounded by men who made me uncomfortable at every minute, and uncomfortable for the right reasons. They made me self-aware, self-conscious, where I was always examining myself, checking myself, and making sure I'm proper, I'm level, I'm square, I'm correct. Making sure that I'm coming correct. In Ifa Yoruba tradition, this goes along with an initiate. When there's an initiate, they dress in white. And the initiate dresses in white because you have to learn self-awareness. Dressing in white teaches you self-awareness. You become suddenly hyper aware of where you're sitting. You don't want to get a stain on your clothes, how you move it. And that's how these brothers had me feeling at an early age. And I never felt that way since my father died. Well, that was the last time I felt that way, was when my father, before my father died. This was during the time when I wasn't seeing my father as often because, we moved out of state. And that was like the compensation. It was a healthy compensation for me not being with my father. And all the fighting could have had to do, with the fact that I wasn't with my father no more. I didn't have access to him no more. Like I used to, being out of state. And so when I got to where we was going, it started out where I was getting bullied. You know what I'm saying? Because I was coming from New York, and we was the first time in the South. And, from the accent to my style and everything else, it just brought negative attention. You know what I'm saying? And I was getting bullied on. I didn't have friends there, all this other stuff. And, one day I just made up my mind, like, these niggas ain't gonna terrorize me. I'm gonna terrorize these niggas. You know what I'm saying? Next nigga get out of place. I'm setting it off. I'm gonna show them who the fuck, what I'm saying, is an animal around here. You know what I'm saying? And I started wilding on niggas. I started knocking niggas out. And I got good at it. I got good at knocking niggas out. Chin checking, running up in niggas' faces, like, what's good, what you want to do, you know what I'm saying? Just get shit popping, and it became a regular thing. I started loving it, But before it could turn into an animal, the nation got hold of me and redirected that energy into my character, redirected that energy into purpose. You know what I'm saying? And the first thing they emphasized was identity, culture, my spiritual identity, my social identity, my political identity. And they held me accountable to all three of those layers. You know what I mean? And what I didn't know was that all of that was playing into having background and insight into how I would interpret charts later on. Even when you hear me explaining astrology, I'm drawing off of my South Node. I'm drawing off of my lunar insights of all the experiences that I passed through, and I'm channeling it. Because I remove things out of the way that blocks that channeling, it's able to just flow. And no matter what I learned along the way, I'm able to utilize it to explain and express astrology. And that's the same thing that you have the ability to do as well. I'm not the only one. You could do the same thing, but greater. Because just like I got experiences, you got experiences too. And just like I got my own style, you got your own style. Everybody don't want to receive from my style, but they might want to receive from your style. And that's why we all need to be different. You know what I'm saying? Because there's people who need to hear it the way that you give it, you know? And I can't deliver the way you deliver, and I'm not supposed to, you know? But I got my style because, this is what I was looking for. And if I was looking for it, then that means somebody else was looking for it too. So be who you supposed to be, not somebody else. You know what I'm saying? That's why I show up here being myself. Comfortable being myself. Not dressed up, not, you know what I'm saying, slick your hair back and try to pretend like I'm righteous or proper and all this. Nah, I'm being myself. Gutty, gritty, you know what I'm saying? Shitty sidewalks, New York, nigga. That's who I'm being. When I show up, you smell shitty sidewalks in New York. That's how I want my sound to be. You know what I'm saying? That's exactly how I want it to be. Just like I say in my channel intro, in so many words, I'm ignorant. All right? That's part of it. And you can hear it when I talk that I'm ignorant. You know what I'm saying? I'm a little barbaric. I'm a little uncivilized. And because this comes from my South Node Sagittarius, my North Node Gemini suggests you need to fix certain details, heal certain details, clean up certain details that harmonizes this so it's not, making damage and doing destruction or taking away from opportunity to your destiny. I got to clean this stuff up. You see how that confession works? That's my confession of my South Node. And the confession of my South Node is, yes, I'm barbaric, but guess what? You got to get a little more civilized in your delivery. You know what I mean? South Node Uranus at Sagittarius, conjunct Jupiter. Yeah, I could say shit that got a shock value that would just, it's like a bolt of lightning, like, damn, oh, did he really say that? Yeah, he said that. But through North Node Gemini, I have to learn how to, add a little sugar. I have to learn too to add a little grease, so it's less painful. You know what I mean? Add a little Vaseline. You feel me? So these are things that I gotta learn. I gotta get it right. I have to consider more of feelings out there. That is my maturity that I have to strive for. Okay? And this includes bringing in more divine feminine into my expression. I have plenty divine feminine that I utilize to come to an understanding. Okay? I'm very good at getting in touch with my divine feminine. But my delivery could use a little divine feminine along with it. Now, in my personal readings, I got that down pat. But publicly, I have to work on it. Because on the one-to-ones, privately, when I do a reading, I'm pulling off of my 12th house Cancer Venus. You see? That's 12th house Cancer Venus. When I get on the phone with you personally and do a reading, you can hear that my tone is different. My delivery is different. I speak motherly. You know what I'm saying? I speak lovingly. I'm sensitive about how you feel and what you're thinking as I'm giving this message. I'm intuiting where you're at so I can find you and meet you there and bring you to shore. That Venus allows me to, speak to you in a way where you could receive it, where it's less painful. You know what I'm saying? So when you hear me on the personal, that's not Gemini Mars conjunct Sun. That's Cancer Venus at the 12th house when I'm speaking to you, counseling you personally. You know what I mean? But publicly, this is Gemini 11th house conjunct Mars and Sun. And it got shock value to it. Bam, bam, boom, boom, boom. It's whooping ass. You know what I'm saying? It's doing backflips, whooping ass, slapping niggas, turning over tables, spitting and you know what I'm saying? Smoking blunts and liquor. You know what I'm saying? It's a bar fight. So uh, again, this comes back to natal birth chart. Okay, how else would I understand this about myself? Yeah, I could have arrived at the same understanding and I possibly could have articulated it as well at some point. But when you have the natal birth chart, you have the sharp clarity with no question or doubt at what energy you're drawing off of when you are in certain experiences. And that helps you to have a level of acceptance for who you are at different places because there's a reason why you have that particular energy and consciousness at those different places. When I'm counseling personally, I can't take Gemini 11th house Mars conjunct the sun into my personal counseling with people in their natal birth chart. You know what I'm saying? Because it's offensive. I can't talk to you personally the way I do publicly. No, because that's offensive. The things that I say, if I personalize it, put a name on it, or call you up and talk to you in the tone that I do right here at this YouTube channel, no, it's disrespectful and offensive. But I'm speaking to the public platform. This is a different story. You know what I mean? This is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to deliver Mars conjunct the sun. And that's masculine and it's ready to fight. It's controversial. It want the smoke. You know what I'm saying? It don't shy away from the conflict and controversy. And Gemini is a troublemaker. It stirs shit up. You know what I'm saying? It's full of mischief. So I'm supposed to bring the mischief. I'm supposed to say shit that set people off, make them think, stir up confusion. Just like Jesus said, think not that I come to bring priest, but I come to bring a sword. I come to set daughter against mother and set son against father. Jesus said that, nigga. Fuck is you talking about? Jesus said that. Jesus didn't come to give out hugs. That's what people say of him. And it's a lie. People lie on Jesus. And they say what the fuck they want to say about Jesus. Jesus didn't say that. Jesus said he came to set daughter against mother and son against father. He said that. He came to start shit. Controversy and confusion. That is Mars Gemini, to set daughter against mother and son against father. That is also Mars Cancer, which we are at right now, Mars Cancer. When you set children against the parents, when you stir up conflict and controversy, that is Mars Gemini. So yeah, I'm doing the Lord's work out here, nigga. Fuck is you talking about? What are you doing? Because I'm doing the Lord's work. I don't know what the fuck you doing, but I'm doing the Lord's work, nigga. Fuck you mean? I'm doing the Lord's work. Yeah. Yeah. Now, on a personal level, you know, that's the 12th house, because when you do a personal reading, you're supposed to come from unconditional love. All right? Because that's God's word. So you got to draw off of the 12th house to do God's word in personal counseling. You see? Because you got to be able to reach a person on a personal level to heal that person. You got to bring them to Pisces, which is to bring them to God. Right? So you pull off of the 12th house to counsel a person. What's in your 12th house? That's what you use to show up in your divine purpose in a personal level. So for me, I'm showing up in divine feminine when I'm doing a reading. Divine masculine when I'm on a channel doing a public discourse. You see? So when I put up a video, that's divine masculine. When I'm personally counseling a person doing a reading, that's divine feminine I got to draw off of, not divine masculine. And you can't bring one to the other because that's not your instructions. That's not what your chart says you're supposed to fucking do. You see what I'm saying? So when you follow the instructions of your chart, there's no confusion. And you don't have to worry also about what other people are saying. Everybody can shut the fuck up. If your chart is telling you to do this, you do what the fuck your chart say you're supposed to do. You don't worry about other people's opinions. You don't worry about what other people got to say. You know what I'm saying? Them niggas can kick rocks. You cannot set your self-esteem or your mission on other people's opinions. You know what I mean? People gonna always have something to say any damn way. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, natal birth chart. I'm jumping around a little bit, but okay, with the whole school thing, prisons and institutions and stuff like that, these natal charts really can't help a lot. It can help so much. Counseling, group homes, things like that. Any place where there's problems, where people need to understand their life. Now, we don't have to wait for that to become, a part of the infrastructure of our public services, right? You could get this started in your family now. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to wait for that. So, if you're having a child or you have, kids who are considerably young, toddlers and, things like that, kids are adolescents, it's not too late to start that tradition, to start that culture, to start that trend in your family and then pass it down. Okay. You might be the one in your generation to start that habit by introducing everybody to astrology, the proper way, the correct way, the real way, not just as art and pastime, but actual sacred instructions in life, that should be honored and followed. So imagine, you take leadership in your family and say, you know what, I'm going to introduce this to all the youth in the family. Or I'm going to introduce this to so-and-so in the family. And next thing you know, your family is on that page and it becomes a tradition over the years, you fast forward 10 years, you fast forward 5 years or whatever. Now everybody's pulling charts, collectively in the family, keeping each other on page, for example, okay, say your family after some years caught on, right? They catch on. And the youth, really caught on well. They well versed now. So as things are happening, we know that when a transit happens, okay, it affects everybody in a particular way. It also affects us individually in our own little microcosm of our experience, all right? So, for example, we know that the Mars Cancer transit is going to be considerably long, right, for the rest of the year. So as a family, you put each other on notice. Say you got a family group chat or something like that, and you put each other on notice because y'all in the habit of, consulting your charts, talking about your charts, passing your charts around, looking into it, making it a part of your guidance. So, somebody in the family says, hey, just want to put y'all a reminder. It looks like Mars is going to be transiting through Cancer for the next 6 months. So as a family, we need to be supportive of each other. Let's not take it personal if somebody feels, insecure, frustrated, emotionally exhausted. Let's be there for each other. You know what I'm saying? So you put that public notice out to the family. You trying to tell me that wouldn't help? You know what I'm saying? You trying to tell me that's not that's not progressing your legacy? That's not helping your family to heal? You know what I'm saying? Because now everybody put on notice. Okay? Everybody in the family's put on notice. Your auntie in Chicago, your uncle in Jamaica, you know what I'm saying? Your cousin in Alabama, your sister in Brooklyn. Okay, whatever. Everybody's put on notice. So as events start unfolding and the news gets around in the family, oh, little so-and-so, he ended up, punching so-and-so in the face and they over there fighting and, NYPD outside. Okay, family, we knew this was coming, right? Nobody panic. Let's remind him. Let's help him to understand. Let's remind them. Let's remind everybody that Mars is passing through Cancer, right? Okay. So what does this mean for us to collectively? Oh, okay. So did somebody pull his chart? All right, let's look at his chart and see what he's going through. Oh, okay. Yeah, his Mars is conjunct his Chiron right now. Oh, okay. So that's why he punched so-and-so in the mouth. NYPD is outside. You know what I'm saying? So now you could wheel that in and show up for your family. Like, listen, just want you to cool out. You know what I'm saying? Catch your breath, right? All that other stuff. They calling you collect from Rikers Island. You know what I'm saying? And you get a chance to talk to them over the phone. Hey, listen, I know you only got a little bit of slot time right now, but I'm trying to put you on notice. Mars is conjunct your Chiron. Give it a couple of weeks, to pass that energy out. But you really need to reflect on this and find out what that healing is supposed to mean. All right? Because that's not what it was for. It was for you to search yourself, with that pain that's been there, so that you could rename it, redefine it, okay? Investigate and understand what it means for you right now. But it wasn't for you to punch so-and-so in the mouth. Now look where you at. You know what I'm saying? So think about that while we work on getting this bail. So we can get your ass out. But when you get out, we got to talk about this. We got to go over this. You know what I'm saying? And now you got a basis. You got a starting point for the conversation. You got a starting point for where you can show up to help heal each other. You know what I mean? And so let's not wait, for fucking Jesus to come down off a cloud and say, oh, my child, I'm going to give you natal birth charts into public institutions. No, you start the shit because you are Jesus, nigga. You are fucking Jesus. All right? So you started. We got to take responsibility with the resources that we do have access to. We got to take responsibility with that. You know what I'm saying? And this is a time for us to be creative and innovative with solutions that we can have. Now, this don't mean everybody's going to be open to it. Because I know personally that your own family is most likely going to be the ones that reject the idea. All right. I know that's just a reality of it. They ain't even gonna want to be all the astrology, whatever, you and that devilment. Y'all worshiping the devil, and all this other crazy stuff. They not gonna want it. A lot of times your family don't want to hear it, but it's worth a try. You might be one of those where it does work for you and your family. Now, if it don't work for the whole family, okay, fine. Maybe your immediate family will be receptive to it. And as you start showing how you align and roll with the oppositions and squares that are fated to occur over a timeline, and you're not getting knocked down by it, but you're transcending with it, other people are seeing that and they gonna want to know, okay, what's your secret? How do you guys stay so confident? How do you stay so faithful? How do you seem to be so resilient to these things? Well, it's not that we're special. It's just that we have access to an understanding. We have access to an insight so that we could align with it and not fight it. You know what I'm saying? And that could be the way that you put other people onto it. You know what I'm saying? To let them know, okay, see, this is how, I knew this was coming. We knew this was coming. So this is why we prepared ourselves this way. I knew that this transit was coming. And that's how in our marriage, we prepared ourselves this way. All those different type of things. It can help with relationships too. And, I don't got to go into all that. But this is, something understood. Now, closing out. I got to go into like a, kind of a, possibly sensitive area here. Natal birth charts. Okay. Natal birth charts. You don't want to just get one reading with your natal birth chart and then you just take off from there. Oh, I got it. No. You want to make sure that you're consistent with studying your chart if you have not mastered understanding it yet. You got to reach out until you rise to that mastery. Okay? It don't mean that you only get a reading from me, but get a reading from somebody who's qualified and somebody who can help you to keep a consistent understanding of where you stand with every transit that's occurring. But without the consistency, it really doesn't mean anything. You can't just be a one-hit wonder, with these things. The meaning comes together over timelines. You know, the way that it works is that a transit today can occur, and the understanding of it can come from what I remember 2 years ago or what I remember a year ago of a transit. That's just how it works. Everything is not of the present necessarily. It's things that I remember seeing or studying of transits from weeks ago, months ago, or years ago that helps me to clarify what it means today over timelines. So you got to stay consistent with it. We are bringing in new opportunity, and we might be the first masters to bring in a new standard of resources, spiritual resources for the people. But it starts with you mastering it first. You know what I'm saying? So I want to encourage you, be consistent. And it don't mean you got to come to me for the reading, even though I will welcome you. You know what I'm saying? If you want to come to me for the reading, it's all good. You know what I'm saying? Get scheduled with me, you know? But I know that I'm not the only person out there who, knows how to read charts, obviously. You know what I mean? I got my style, but if it works for you, then yeah, stick with me. You know what I'm saying? Natal birth chart. I want to stay out of politics with this, but there is some political background to what I'm going to say. All right? And I'll leave that in the air for you to figure out. All right? Because I'm not going to... Anyway, I want to deliver this with tact. Okay? Let me deliver this with tact. The natal birth chart shows you how important one lifetime is, and how a life can start out in crisis. You look at that 12th house and there's terrible things going on. You look at that 4th house and there's all kind of stuff: child molestation, abuse, trauma, betrayal, violence, drug abuse, addictions. You can see all that stuff in the chart. All right. And we all have a piece of darkness. We all have pieces of darkness that we start life out with. But the darkness is meant to be overcome by the light, okay, of salvation. And that's for every soul who enters into this world. Every person. No matter how you got here. And I want to tell you a personal story without telling nobody's business, which is why I have to be, a little indiscreet about who I'm saying this is. But there's a family member that I have that's dear to me, that's close to me, okay? Who I love and cherish so deeply, admire, look up to, respect, honor, okay? He is probably the strongest amongst, one of the strongest amongst us in the family. His leadership is impeccable. Something to pattern yourself after. And I couldn't fathom, imagine, or think of him not existing. And he got here through grape. Okay, I think you're not supposed to say certain words on here, so you understand the word I'm trying to say. All right, this is social media. And there's certain words you're not supposed to say. You know what I mean? Help me out. So he got here because his mother was grape, okay? And she accepted the outcome through her faith. And now he's here. And I can't imagine that if he wasn't here, all the ways that he influenced others, gave confidence to others, gave courage to others, gave strength to others, gave competence to others, leadership to others. His example, it moves the room. I couldn't fathom where we would be without his influence and contributions into the family. I just can't fathom. It's impossible to think. And I'm mentioning that because the natal birth chart, I never got to study his, okay? But what I do know about the natal birth chart is every story, it has a theme, okay? A theme to that story, the AC, okay? The ascendant point, the ascendant Sabian symbol. There's a theme to that movie. It's like a movie title of a story. And every story has that north node, what you're here to bring in for your soul's evolution. And it has a south node where you have been with your soul. And every person is born at a particular day of the month. The heart, soul, urge, vibration, numerology. And that clarifies what your soul is coming with, what it's inclined to maintain a steady intention of, no matter what. And his is 22. He's a master. And if you watch him, you will see that he's a master. And everything that he does, he masters it. Everything. And that life path number, it lets you know the context that is behind the fate that is to come into that north node. And how that heart soul urge number is to move down that north node. How it is to travel through that north node. Learning what? Learning what? And the story of his life is quite inspirational. Having spent over a decade in prison, military, went to war, and straight from war went to prison for over 10 years. And after prison, 10 years in war, became a superintendent over many construction projects, ventured off on his own doing other things and collaborations, a master martial artist, and the people along the way whose life he changed and transformed, taught and inspired and brought to perfection. Imagine he was not here to be that 22. One master in a family, one master in a community, one master on earth. What is the value of one master? Can we even begin to measure? You take 122 away from life, what then would also not have manifested? If you take a master away, I would have never found the courage to face certain things that I face without this master in the history of my life. The things that I've overcome was in reference to the example that I've seen in him. The dangers that I faced boldly was because I never seen him flinch. I went with this person into wars in the streets. My right hand to Allah, swear to Allah, wallahi ladhim. We were in a situation where there was conflict and, we was in some street battles. And he goes up to the opposition. They pull a gun out and fire it at us. He dives into the car and managed to put the key in the ignition, duck down and check and make sure I was safe in the back seat after I dove to dodge the bullet to get in the back car with the door wide open. He didn't take off without me. He made sure I was in the back seat too before he pulled off. Crashed into a tree. It wasn't concerned about himself, but was concerned about me, if I was all right. And still was ready for more war. Was ready for more battle. I'm sitting here shook. Like, nigga, my life passed before my eyes. I could have got hit with that bullet. You could have got hit with that bullet. But he was looking for more. a resilient warrior. Imagine that 22 did not exist. So I say that to say that if one person is not here, it also erases everything that that person had effect to, everything that that person had consequence to as well. It erases their contributions. What would be different without one person existing, one person being here in life? And some of us enter in ways that are traditional, and some of us come here in ways that are not necessarily traditional. Some of us come here in ways that are planned. Some of us come here in ways that are not planned. Some of us come here with everything laid out for us, and some of it come here in crisis with nothing laid out for us, nothing considered for us. Catastrophe. The beginning of your life is no explanation for how it's going to unfold. You cannot know where you're going to end up at based on where you started. Never think that. You could start out in total turmoil, crisis, burdens, and problems in life. But the story of your life is meant to evolve in such a way that demonstrates how light can conquer darkness, how it can overcome darknesses, how good can overcome evil, how we are meant to prevail and succeed, how wisdom crystallizes from all of these darknesses, evils, and trials and troubles. The power of wisdom, the power of understanding, love, and forgiveness after suffering so much pain, hurt, trauma, negligence, betrayal, deceit, oppression. Our greatest heroes started out in the worst conditions. Look at Malcolm X. Look at Malcolm X and all the phases he went through. A drug dealer in Harlem, a pimp, a gambler, a womanizer. But look what he evolved to become. And all of the evils that he did, it became wisdom, insightful wisdom that helped him to deliver truth with authority. Understand. There are so many brothers who I know did bids, went to prison, murder, drug dealing, all type of crimes, stupid stuff, and things that were just of circumstance, whatever. But most who I know who had these experiences, there's a turning point where all of it becomes wisdom. And all of it becomes authority that delivers the truth, that moves true power. So some would say, oh, I can't provide for this. I can't provide for that child. I don't have the means for this child. We can't keep this child because I'm not ready. I can't give birth to this child because I'm in a screwed up situation myself. Yes, that may be true logically. That's something to think about before that you create the child. That's something that you consider before that you have sex. That's something you contemplate before you get pregnant. That's something to think about before you get someone pregnant. That's something to weigh out before you come inside that girl, come inside that woman. That's something to think about before you have sex without a condom. I don't condone sex with or without a condom. I condone sex through marriage. Let's stop playing with this. Because it's futile to be talking about, sex with a condom, without a condom. Sex if you really love the person or not. And all that shit is futile. The point is, you shouldn't be fucking if you ain't married. That's the real truth. That's the real reality. See, we're playing with confusion. We're playing with chaos. You can't explain away insistence. the consequences of insistence. You can't explain away the consequences of perversion, the consequences of disobedience. You can't explain that away. So people out here on all these podcast shows and everything else, oh, well, you can't do this or you shouldn't do that if you didn't do this. Well, the point is, were you married? No, I wasn't. Okay, then. So you deserve what you got. Was that your husband that you had sex with? Okay, so you deserve the outcome. Was that your wife? Okay, so you deserve it. It's that fucking simple. No, it's not that simple. I mean, stuff is complicated. No, it's not. You have an option to open your legs or close them, motherfuckers. You have an option to stick your dick in or not. It's not complicated. And the circumstances that works up to those experiences, no, it's not that complicated. These are choices and options that we are not powerless to, that we do have control and power over. We do have control and power over who we have sex with and who we don't. Now, this is aside the experience of grape, okay? Which, what I'm explaining through that is, even though that's how he got here, that Master 22, somebody decided to go through with faith to have that child anyway. It was the very first child that she had. And somebody went through to have it anyway. And now, as a witness of how that person's life unfolded, I seen how the darkness was overcome by light. I see how strength was overcome by weakness. I see how misfortune submitted to fortune of character. I see how perfect wisdom cannot be predicted by us. And I see how also that God's plan is so perfect that it will confuse us to even attempt to figure it out. So I say that to say, no one can tell you to have a child or not, when to have a child and when not to. But I can say we should think about, rather it's appropriate that abortions are used as contraceptives. Rather or not, abortion should be used as a condom. Is it fair to the soul who comes with that natal birth chart expressed behind its being to cut off the unfolding of that natal chart, to block the unfolding of that natal chart, to end the story of that natal chart unfolding? Imagine that. Imagine a natal birth chart that was meant to unfold in stages. And because it's inconvenient for you right now, because you made a mistake on a Saturday night, because you changed your mind about whether you like this guy or like this girl, because you couldn't control yourself in a moment of heat, because the urge was that great, you are going to close this story up and send the person back to the essence. You're going to send a soul back to the essence. You're going to say, no, I got to live mine, but you don't get to live yours because it's going to affect my money. It's going to affect my reputation. It's going to affect the relationships that I have going. It's going to inconvenience me. No, you don't get to unfold the meaning of your life. You don't have to have you don't get to have a chance to allow light to overcome the darkness in your beginnings. It's about me, not you. But you're the one who brought them there. There are people who are fighting for the option in every state to determine the fate of a fetus. And where I want to bring attention at is our intentions. Our intentions is what I am speaking to. Our intentions. I think we all could agree that a person should have an option if they experience the reality of grape Okay? None of us can argue that. And what a person should think or feel. But people will hide behind such an argument to disguise their true intentions, to disguise their true aim, which could include, I want to be able to have the option to erase my mistake, to go back on my error. If I should get pregnant in my promiscuous ways, in my dating, in my serial dating, in my going from person to person, that is not a solution to practice murder, because that's exactly what it is. When you take it upon yourself to authorize yourself as a decision maker on whether or not a living being with a soul and a destiny should be returned back to the essence by your decision and authority, yes, that is murder. You're killing someone. You're denying them the chance to have a witnessing and testimony of their life story because it inconveniences you. But you're the one who decided not to keep the legs closed. You're the one who decided to enter that woman without considering these things. We are in a serious moral catastrophe in our country, in our world, where these things are even questionable. A life is a life is a life is a life. You are connected to a chain of genetic information, divine value and meaning that's being sent. And you never know who a child is. You don't know who a child is. You can never look at a child and say, oh, I know what you're coming to do. No matter what the chart says, you still don't know. You still don't know the great things that they are meant to accomplish. You don't know. And we want to be able to preserve the option to decide on who should live and who should not live of an innocent life. I think we are focused on the wrong things. And a healthier focus is, how do we end up becoming a society that's so promiscuous? How do we end up thinking lightly of being promiscuous? How do we end up thinking lightly of getting pregnant, of making babies? How do we get so desensitized and detached from how sacred life is to where children are out here murdering other children in the streets? And women are going to the clinic to murder babies. How do we get so desensitized? What happened to us to where we have forgotten how sacred life really is? That is a tragedy. That is the part that we really need to investigate. And these tired, dried up ass slogans of, oh, it's my body, my right. Bitch, yeah, it's your body and your right. It's also your right to close your motherfucking legs. It's also your right to stop fucking so goddamn much and stop sucking so damn much. It's also your right to think about these things before you get pregnant, bitch. That's your right too. To close your goddamn legs. To get a fucking husband. That's your right too. We let simple ass slogans from celebrities determine our conscience. Celebrities determine your judgment. That's a real crisis and tragedy. And again, what I'm saying is apart, okay, from the whole grape subject, because that's a whole different ball game, okay? You didn't ask for that. Someone dominated or overpowered you in an oppressive way, okay? There's so much more behind that needs to be understood, and medical conditions as well, okay? There's a lot behind that needs to be understood with the medical. But what I'm saying is those who want to condone it and those who want to encourage this so that they can relieve themselves of the worry of having the option to get rid of, to erase a mistake and their promiscuous trends. We really need to examine the condition of our hearts and our minds and our spirits. We really do. We need healing. We really need healing. Life is sacred. It is sacred. And when you look at a natal birth chart, you see how sacred it is. There's some natal birth charts out there that can make you cry. It can make you cry on what it's saying, what it's expressing from beginning to end. It can make you cry tears of what the person is meant to overcome. Of the pains that was intended to enlighten the person at early stages. The negligence that was to lead to a perfect expression of unconditional love. The poverty that was meant to enrich the person with a wealth of compassion and resourcefulness. The betrayal and some who were orphans due to wicked circumstances, who ended up becoming masters of mothers. Mothers who embodied perfect compassion and love. From the darkness comes the light. And light is meant to overcome the darknesses in our natal birth chart story. We really need to examine ourselves and think about who is calling us to do wicked things, who is calling us to ignore our conscience, who is calling us to betray the voice of God that's instilled inside of our soul, who keeps calling us to that. And when you go to those voting polls, you need to think about that.